I remember with great fondness and appreciation my church history professor at Boston University School of Theology, the late Dr. Earl Kent Brown. Dr. Brown was a popular professor among the students, and he had a captivating style of lecturing. He made history come alive for us. One of the classes he taught was United Methodist Church history, which is required of all candidates for ordination in the United Methodist Church. On the day that he gave his lecture, when he's describing the end of John Wesley's life and his death, everyone in the school would know because all of us left the classroom in tears. We were so engrossed by the way he described history. As John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist movement, spoke words of wisdom and inspiration as he lay dying, and it's captured with this quote, "The best of all is, God is with us." It seems to me that the final words of a person of faith should be congruent with the way they live their life. Our message today is called Final Words, and we are considering the final teachings of Jesus and his final words from the cross. During Lent, we've been focusing on the message of Jesus, and today we want to concentrate on some of the final words of Jesus as recorded in the Gospels. There are 7 different statements recorded between the 4 Gospels that are attributed to Jesus on the cross. We recall that Jesus died an agonizing death. Even uttering a very short phrase would have been painful. The gruesome reality of his death makes each word that we have recorded from Jesus that he uttered more precious and important to us. On Good Friday, it is the tradition in many churches to have a service of preaching on these 7 phrases Jesus spoke from the cross. And I've been honored to preach in many of these services through the years. Now, traditionally, you have one preacher for each of the phrases. So you can imagine asking 7 preachers to preach in one service. It can get a little lengthy. But we think about these final words recorded from Jesus. And I would encourage you to go and look in the Gospels to think about the significance of each one. But today I want to highlight just one of the statements Jesus makes while on the cross. This one is recorded in Luke 23, verse 24, the Common English Bible. "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." Father, forgive them. A word of grace from the cross. It shouldn't surprise us, really, that Jesus offers words of forgiveness as a final word. Jesus came to accomplish our salvation, to offer both forgiveness and reconciliation to all who will accept it. Father, forgive them. We also hear words of forgiveness that Jesus speaks specifically to one of the thieves crucified next to him. You may remember that Jesus is crucified between 2 thieves. One of them derides Jesus, right? But the other man repents of his sin, and he professes faith in Jesus. Jesus most graciously welcomes this man to paradise, that is the kingdom of heaven. Father, forgive them. When Jesus says, forgive them, who exactly do you think Jesus is including in the them? Especially when I was younger, I often thought of this, that Jesus meant specifically the soldiers. Right? They were the ones charged with doing the dirty work, if you will, of crucifixion. And they did it with such cruelty so as to inflict the most pain they could. And not only pain, but humiliation. Yes, Jesus forgives them. But that's not all. Jesus forgives the government officials who had ordered his execution. And Jesus offers forgiveness to the Jewish leaders who plotted and entrapped Jesus until they got what they wanted. Anybody else we want to include in the them? How about the disciples? They've all abandoned him. And Jesus is offering them forgiveness too, including Peter, who denies Jesus 3 times. Father, forgive them, Jesus says. And I believe that the word them applies to all people, including us. Jesus forgives us. Pastor Adam Hamilton, in his book, The Message of Jesus, makes this claim about Jesus' offer of forgiveness. If Jesus offered such grace to the criminal on the cross, will he not also forgive you and me? Yes. Jesus forgives us. He proclaimed a message of forgiveness from the beginning of his earthly life until the very end. And so forgiveness is an integral part of what it means to be a servant of God. And we heard in our gospel lesson Jesus teaching about what true greatness is, and that we are called to serve as Jesus served. Jesus has been trying to teach his disciples repeatedly this lesson. To be great is to serve. And this conversation, this argument among the disciples arises at that Last Supper, as Jesus is preparing to be arrested and be crucified. His disciples are arguing about who the greatest among them is. And so Jesus is trying to teach us, as he did his disciples, to follow him requires serving as Jesus serves. Part of serving as Jesus serves is to be forgiving. Forgiveness requires being a servant. Jesus requires that his followers love everyone, even one's enemies. We heard from the Sermon on the Mount as recorded in Matthew 6, this commandment from Jesus, but I say to you, love your enemies. And isn't that what Jesus is doing from the cross when he says, Father, forgive them? Jesus offers his enemies forgiveness with his dying words. He loves his enemies in a life-transforming way. Pastor Adam Hamilton reminds us we are to love our neighbor, to love our enemies, and to love one another. This is the defining mark of the Christian life. Love is the defining quality. It is the defining mark of the life and the death of Jesus. My friends, we are called to love, to serve, and to forgive like Jesus. Father, forgive them. Father, forgive us.